Hey Jazz, Paul here. It is Tuesday, day after you dropped off the bike, and I, as you can see, have got your bike completely stripped, and I think I have found the issue as to why your bike was dripping just the smallest amount of oil after it had come through my shop and been serviced. Bear with me, because what I have to show you is a routing of hoses that run up through the bike to the other side to a tank, blah, blah, blah. But let's get started. Okay, just going to bring the bike up just a little bit here. Okay, perfect. All right, so here we have a very shallow catch tray. And then right above here, we have 3 overflow hoses here. And these are intended by the factory. One is overflow, I'm going to say, from a vapor lock in the gas tank, i.e. you park the bike in the sun, pressure builds up in the gas tank, it overflows, and it comes out of this little spout here. The other is closely related to the gas tank as well. You're at the gas pump, you're filling up, and oops, you've overfilled. It has a catch basin around the top of the cap. I maybe will show that to you, but anyway, that runs all the way down through to here, and that leaves this last guy right here. This is a clear tube compared to the one next to it. And you've seen these before. They're like when the fairing is down covering up this entire view, all you'd see is just the sort of nipple end of these guys sticking at the very bottom of your bike, just the very bottom there. But at any rate, this one here is actually a oil vapor trap. So what happens inside your engine, behind this cover, is the stator and the flywheel. But attached to that is the crank. And as the crank, from it being a V-twin, is moving around at really high speeds, it's thrashing in the oil and it's churning up a oil vapor. That oil vapor, of course, gets hot because the engine is running, and it builds pressure, and it pressurizes the oil case as it does in all vehicles. May they be 2-stroke, 4-stroke diesel, otherwise they all make this pressure, and they all need a way to vent or relieve the pressure. And one of the ways that Honda has done it in this case is it's collected into something called the crankcase breather pipe, which is this guy here that I just showed you. And this crankcase breather pipe, don't say that 3 times fast, I have just emptied, which is why you see a little bit of oil in here. So it's very hard to do with 2 hands, and perhaps I should have prepared this before. Or sorry, difficult to do with 1 hand because I'm holding the camera with the other. But basically, this plug, it's not coming out very easily. Let me just put the camera down here. All right, so pull this off. Pan, just catch any drops that come out. All right, there it is. All right, so as you can see, I pulled the plug out, and there are some drops coming out of there and catching it in the pan. This is absolutely expected and normal. Remember that engine churning, making oil vapor? It collects into a white or plastic tank. Actually looks a lot like this one. This is your coolant. It's not related to this overflow pipe. We're going to go around. Actually, let's just follow this. Okay, so there's what's come out of here, and this is absolutely normal. All bikes have this. And you'll follow this hose up, and it'll come up and go underneath here, and it disappears into the engine. But it goes over to this side. I'm just going to grab my flashlight here. And here we go. Bring up the lift a bit more here. All right, so it drifts down a little over time. Okay, and although it doesn't seem very obvious, you have to like totally put your nose right inside here. But this is the other tank that I was telling you about. This is the crankcase overflow tank or reservoir. The engine makes the viscous vapor. It collects into this tank, and this tank empties into that tube, which is actually now just right there. You can kind of see it dripping right there. Yeah, and it drips in there. So it runs up the other side of the bike, comes up over here, and it appears in here. And actually, I'm not sure you can see it on camera if the lighting's too bright, but this drip right here, you see this red on the end of it? That's the culprit. That's the leak. It's very, very difficult for me to show this to you on camera, but obviously the side stand on this bike is on the other side. So when the bike is parked, it's leaning quite severely, I might add, it leans quite a bit to the left side. So even though this tank is on this side of the bike, gravity pulls the oil across the engine and it exits out the other side. Now, the bike, as we also know, only goes in this direction, predictably at pretty good speed. And as a result, wind blows whatever's on the engine back out the back here. So when you initially got down on your knees and had a look, you saw a lot of oil sprayed all up in here. And that's absolutely to be expected because, well, that's what it does. When you move forward, it blows air back. And this whole section back here was completely gross and covered with oil. I cleaned it all off. I dried it all off because I wanted to find out where the leak was coming from. And as I look up into these little crevices, places and stuff to see if potentially there was oil hiding up in here, I would have seen a predictable leak coming from this fastener here. It's one of three. There's one guy over there. There's another guy hiding behind this hose, which I can't move with the flashlight. But anyway, it's a very cramped space in here. And everything here, as far as the valve cover, the valve gasket, and the grommets that are underneath this fastener here, these are all good. These are all dry. I've taken a finger and wiped very critically around to see if I could see anything in there that was wet, and definitively our smoking gun, lighting. Our smoking gun is that drip right there. This big fat hose takes the vapor from the front cylinder. It connects to the back cylinder as well on the other side. We can't see because the frame is blocking our view, but it connects and goes into this tank, and that tank exits as it overflows, or fills up, I should say, exits out the bottom of the bike from that tube that I showed you. But this is it. You can see it. You can see where the oil has literally been leaking right out of this hose down onto the engine, and then on the side stand it leans over to one side, and then as you move forward, it leaks out or it looks like it's leaking out the back. I've just had your bike running before I started this video, and trying to get it nice and hot to see if I could find the leak. And I haven't so far seen anything that's obvious to me as to where potentially the leak just might be. Except for right here. And although you can't see it, I really wish you could. Let me zoom in here, see what I can get for you. Woo, that's close, baby. You can see on the bottom of the bottle right there, the lighting's kind of severe, but you can see the bottom of the bottle just a little bit, like really not that much, but just enough to kind of make you say, hey, what the heck? Where's this oil coming from? And that's it. So the culprit potentially is this clamp, which is showing a lot of dirt, not much wetness, but it's that clamp up there, and ultimately this bottle. There is another clamp hiding. Yeah, okay, flashlight's right on it. It's right there. Bam, bam. See if I can move this guy here. Oops, sorry, I'm not a cameraman. I'm a mechanic. Okay, yeah, there it is. Nice. Look at that. Okay, there it is. It is a little bit wet and a little bit gross, and I'm going to put a screwdriver on it and see if I can get it to shut up. And that's it, my friend. Nice, eh? Looks like we got it. All right. Hey, Jazz. Okay, I was just uploading the first half of that video, and I just wanted to point this out just so you have a much better understanding. Okay, so that, come on, focus, buddy. Come on. Attaboy. All right, so there is our smoking gun. This is the clamp that I said was a little ugly, and I was going to put a screwdriver, see if I can get to shut up. I got about 6 turns out of that clamp, and it feels nice and snug now. I'm going to clean it off too, but I just wanted to show you, remember I was telling you that this big, let's back off here just a little. There we go. Okay, so this big fat pipe here goes into the tank. The oil vapor comes from the front cylinder, and there's a joining pipe on the back cylinder that we can't see because the engine's blocking our view. It goes into this white tank. This white tank, the vapor circulates inside here, and it actually gets plumbed straight up. That's what this clamp is for. This clamp that I screwdrivered tight to 5 or 6 turns, it goes straight up and ends up actually inside your air box. Okay, just gonna put the bike down so you get a better view. All right, good. Okay, so yeah, so out of that clamp, it goes straight up like this, and it ends up inside your air box here. And I'm gonna try to do this with one hand. I apologize, I'm not a cameraman. But the other side of that hose is underneath here. And if I pull this aside, there it is. Oops. Get this guy. Okay, so there it is. There's the very inside of that vapor trap. So you might be thinking, well, what the heck? Why is there a hole in my airbox that leads from viscous oil vapor going into my airbox? And the answer is this. The manufacturer, before this fancy airbox was installed, the manufacturer had that original hose down there plumbed into what would have been a factory airbox. This kind of square looking thing that kind of sits on top, look like a square mushroom. And it takes that oil vapor and it recirculates it back through your intake manifold so that your engine burns it and it goes right out the tailpipe harmlessly. And that's essentially what you're seeing, is that this fancy new airbox has got the exact same attachment, but it's just an open hole in here, and it's right there. I can't really, this is hard. But that's it right there. And it comes up in here. So whatever heavy stuff that forms droplets collects into the bottom of that tank, goes out that hose that I showed you. It's at the bottom of the bike. But the vapor that's light enough that doesn't collect into droplets and go down that hose comes up through this pipe, enters the airbox, and then gets sucked into your intake. And that's it. It's also a measure actually to make the engine run a little bit quieter, because you can imagine that oil being a heavier, it's still a gas, but that oil entering the combustion chamber would seat itself around the valve seats and the valves themselves and act as a sort of, cushion of sorts and make the engine run a little bit quieter. But that is absolutely 100% intended. And this is just the sort of second half of the video, just to give you a full explanation as to what that clamp, hose, crankcase, breather pipe, where it what it does, etc. So that's the full system right there. So I'll connect this video to the back half of the first video so that it all, has continuity. All right.